Good morning and welcome to today's Board of Commissioners zoning hearing this February 15th of 2022. Due to our COVID restrictions, we have a hybrid meeting this morning, and instead of having a minister here for or someone from the religious community for our invocation, we will have a moment of silence followed by the pledge, which will be brought by Officer Desisher. For all of you willing and able, please stand for our moment of silence. All right, thank you.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our meeting is officially called to order. Because of the modified format today, I'm going to turn things over to Debbie Blair, who's with our County Attorney's Office.
Good morning. Georgia's open meeting law allows virtual meetings when a local government is under a declaration of emergency, as Cobb currently is. Community Development, Communications, and Cobb's Information Services can offer virtual participation for components of the Board of Commissioners zoning meeting by a motion of the board. While the meeting will be live today at 100 Cherokee Street, and it will have zoning applicants and public in attendance, some of the county staff and the public may view and participate virtually to assist with social distancing. To that end, I suggest, by way of a motion made by the board, that because of the unprecedented circumstances of the COVID pandemic, and while under a declaration of emergency, which is currently set to expire at 11:59 p.m. on February 19, 2022, that the Board of Commissioners zoning meeting rules be temporarily revised for this February meeting as follows. Staff and citizens will be allowed to participate virtually. BOC members may vote by voice or by hand signal. Persons wishing to be counted as either in favor or in opposition to an application will be recognized and the number of persons provided to the board. Persons who wish to speak virtually in favor or in opposition to an application will identify themselves accordingly to IS technical staff for participation during the presentation of the application. Otherwise, the BOC zoning meeting rules will apply during the normal course of the meeting pursuant to the rules. And Chair, if you would call a motion for those revisions.
Thank you. So moved as presented. Any discussion?
I will just clarification. This is for today's meeting only, correct? Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And just to check, will we be able to vote using our regular voting machine? Great. All right, so I'll call the question. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. With that, I will turn things over to John Peterson to help walk through our agenda for today.
Thank you and good morning. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When the case is called, we would ask that the applicant please stand up and raise their hand to show that they are here in attendance. Then we're going to call to see if there's anyone here opposed to that specific case. We would also ask that the opposition please stand up and raise their hand so we can count them for the official record. After recognizing the applicant and any opposition, both parties will be asked to come forward to be sworn in so they can present testimony to the board. It's important to note that the applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if any, would testify second. Each side only gets 10 minutes to state their case or concerns. There's not a process to reserve your time, and there's not a rebuttal process. So you want to convey all your information to the board within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if there's more than one person who wishes to speak on a case, you may want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you don't want to cover the same information twice. Then after both sides have had their 10-minute presentation period, the board will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one more speaker to come back to the front for additional comments or questions. And after that, the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the matter at hand. There are 6 cases on today's printed agenda which have been withdrawn without prejudice, and these cases will not be heard. First case is rezoning case Z61 of 2021, Blue Tiger Properties. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z68 of 2021, Tiffany Gray. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z88 of 2021, Taylor Morrison of Georgia LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. SLEP-7 of 2021, Blue Tiger Properties LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z10 of 2022, Traden LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. And finally, SLEP-2 of 2022, Campus Realty Advisors LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued or held by the staff of the Planning Commission, and these cases will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z38 of 2021, Windsong Properties. This case was continued by the staff until the March 15th, 2022 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So Z38 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z48 of 2021, Ray Murphy. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z48 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z83 of 2021, St. Burke. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the April 5th, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z83 of 2021 will not be heard today. Moving into special land use permits that are held or continued, SLEP-3 of 2021, Ray Murphy. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLEP-3 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z1 of 2022, Pulte Home Company. This case was continued by the staff until the March 1st, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z1 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z5 of 2022, Wee Ping Schneider, America 101 LLC. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the March 1st, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z5 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z7 of 2022, KM Homes. This case was continued by the staff until the March 1st, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z7 of 2022 will not be heard today. Other business item number 75 of 2021, Mount Bethel Christian Academy Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the March 15th, 2022 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 75 of 2021 will not be heard today. Other business item number 1 of 2022, Andrew Hamilton. This case was continued by the staff until the March 15th, 2022 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 1 of 2022 will not be heard today. And finally, other business item number 3 of 2022, Lonnie Shore. This case was continued by the staff until the March 15th, 2022 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 3 of 2022 will not be heard today. Madam Chair and Board, we did get a request late last week to continue 2 other cases that are on your agenda. That's rezoning case Z78 of 2021 and SLEP-11 of 2021. And both these cases are for St. Benedict's Episcopal School. And the applicant is present, but they are asking that this case be continued until your March hearing date to give them additional time to work on their plan.
Okay, Commissioner Richardson.
Motion to continue till next meeting, till March?
March 15th.
March 15th.
Thank you. I'll second it. Is there any discussion? All right, I'll call the question. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. I would like to ask people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please put your cell phone on mute, as when the phone rings, it does interfere with the broadcast and the presentation. And I want to remind folks who wish to speak before the Board of Commissioners that they must file a campaign contribution disclosure statement. If within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of a rezoning application, a campaign contribution totaling $250 or more was made to a current member of the Board of Commissioners. Additional information about this is located on the table in the back of the room. And I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this hearing. Any information submitted after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. Madam Chair and Board, we did get one request for an early head count, and we will ask for a head count both in person and virtually. For the people here today in person, can I get please stand up if you're opposed to rezoning case Z8 Streamline Development Partners. Please stand up and raise your hands. Jeannie, how many are there here? 16. Okay, Madam Chair and Board, there's no one here in person opposed to rezoning case Z8. However, there are 16 people online that are opposed to rezoning case Z8 of 2022 Streamline Development Partners. So we'll just note that for the record so when it comes up.
Thank you.
And with that, Madam Chair and Board, I'm ready to start the consent agenda. And, we are going to pull rezoning case Z2 of 2022, Pat Spencer U-Haul Company, Atlanta West, and also SLEP-1 of 2022, Pat Spencer U-Haul Company, Atlanta West. We are going to pull these off consent and just have a hearing on these, Madam Chair and Board. So we're not going to call those in consent.
Sir.
All right, thank you.
Can you repeat the cases?
Okay, it's a rezoning case Z2 of 2022, Pat Spencer, U-Haul Company, Atlanta West. And it has a special lanes permit with it, SLEP-1 of 2022, Pat Spencer, U-Haul, Atlanta West. So those two cases are going to be pulled off consent and just put in their regular order. Thank you. Okay, Cobb County Board of Commissioners, zoning hearing consent agenda for February 15th, 2022. Rezoning case Z80 of 2021, Timothy G. Jenkins, request rezoning from GC to R20 for a single-family residence in land lot 142 of the 20th District. The property is located on the north side of New Rutledge Road, west of Meadowlark Lane. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z80 to the R20 zoning district, subject to staff comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z80?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to rezoning case Z80. Rezoning case Z3, Eldemira Alas requests a rezoning from LI to R20 for a single-family residence in land lot 868 and 909 of the 19th District. The property is located on the south side of Powder Springs Road, west of Flint Hill Road, Pine Grove Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z3 to the R20 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Number 2, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. And number 3, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z3?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to rezoning case Z3. Rezoning case Z4, Quentin Wiggles requests a rezoning from GC to R20 for a single-family residence in land lot 108 of the 17th District. The property is located on the north side of Ridge Avenue, east of Old Gordon Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z4 to the R20 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, letter from the Mapleton Improvement Coalition dated January 26, 2022. And number 2, staff comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z4?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to rezoning case Z4. Rezoning case Z6, VG Developers request a rezoning from GC to OS for an office warehouse in land lot 84, the 16th District. The property is located on the northeast side of Shalford Road, south of Jamerson Road. The Planning Commission recommends deletion of Z6 to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, revised site plan received by the zoning division on January 7, 2022, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, district commissioner to approve the final building architecture and landscape plan. Number 3, special exception allowed for a contractor's office, an AR builder, for this applicant in use only. Number 4, applicant to ensure the proposed plan does not exceed 70% impervious coverage. Number 5, fire department comments and recommendations. Number 6, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Number 7, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. And number 8, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z6?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here either virtually or in person opposed to rezoning case Z6. Rezoning case Z11, Perkle Built LLC, requests rezoning from R30 to R12 for single-family residences in land lot 771 of the 17th District. The property is located on the northwest side of Spring Hill Road, on the northeast side of Honeysuckle Lane. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z11 to the R20 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated January 26, 2022. Number 2, establishment of a 10-foot landscape buffer along the eastern portion of Lot 1 facing Spring Hill Road and along the rear lot line of Lots 1 and 2 with year-round evergreen visual screening. Number 3, minimum requirement of 20 feet between homes. Number 4, all homes shall have a minimum 2-car garages. Garages are not to be converted to living space or used solely for storage. Number 5, each home shall have a separate driveway, no shared parking. Number 6, the driveway pads in front of the houses shall be sufficient to hold 2 full-sized automobiles. Number 7, the construction site shall be considered a clean work area with loose debris disposed of each evening. Number 8, prohibition of stacking of vehicles along Honeysuckle Lane and Spring Hill Road. Number 9, provision of a 24-hour contact number in surrounding neighborhoods and posted on-site during the construction period. Number 10, development and construction hour limitations for the project of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, and no work on Sunday unless approved by the district commissioner. Number 11, prohibition on construction trucks and worker vehicles being parked on-site overnight. Number 12, fire department comments and recommendations. Number 13, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Number 14, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Number 15, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Number 16, planning division comments and recommendations. Number 17, all other staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z11?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to rezoning case Z11. Rezoning case Z12, Cameo Capital LLC, request rezoning from CRC to LI for office, warehouse, and showroom light industrial in land lot 861 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Traymore Point Parkway, south of East-West Connector. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z12 to the LI zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated January 26, 2022. Number 2, site plan last revised December 15, 2021, with the district commissioner approved minor modifications. Number 3, fire department comments and recommendations. Number 4, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Number 5, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. And number 6, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z12?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to rezoning case Z12. LUP1, Karen Gooden requests a temporary land use permit for a hair salon in land lots 622 and 637 of the 19th District. The property is located at the terminus of Foxcroft Court, east of Valley Brook Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LUP1 for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, hours of operation to be from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Monday, Thursday, and Friday only. Number 2, all parking to be on hardened surface, not in the right-of-way. Number 3, applicant to be the only employee, no independent contractors. And number 4, staff comments and recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP1?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here either virtually or in person opposed to LEP1. LEP2, Stephanie Salyers requests a temporary land use permit for online soap sales in land lot 208 of the 16th District. The property is located on the east side of Farmbrook Lane, north of Farmbrook Trail. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LUP2 for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. No signs, no on-street parking, and no outdoor storage. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP2?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to LEP2. LEP3, Early Education LLC, requests a temporary land use permit for a daycare in land lots 50, 51, 94, and 95 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Hurt Road, north of Plantation Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LEP3 for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the maximum number of students permitted by state and fire codes. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP3?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to LEP3. LEP4, Joyful Living PCH requests a temporary land use permit for a personal care home in land lot 50 of the 17th District. The property is located on the north side of Hurt Road, east of Fred Walker Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LEP4 for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Number one, maximum of 6 residents. Number two, no parking on the right-of-way. And number three, all stipulations from previous land use permits also apply. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP4?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to LEP4. LEP6, Dathan J. Johnson requests a temporary land use permit for a pet dealer in land lots 769 and 770 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Shady Side Road, north of Hurt Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LEP6 for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Number one, maximum of 1 customer per week on site. Number two, maximum of 15 dogs on the property. Number three, maximum of 3 litters per year. Number four, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. And number five, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP6?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to LEP6. And moving into the other business case on the consent agenda, item number 2 of 2022 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Braves Development Company, LLC, regarding rezoning application Z69 of 2020 in land lots 914, 915, 945, and 946 of the 17th District. The property is located on the southwest side of I-75, northeast of Cobb Parkway, and on the northwest side of I-285. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, letter from Mr. James Bally dated January 4th, 2022. And number two, all previous stipulations not in conflict to remain in effect. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 2?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here either in person or virtually to other business item number 2. And Madam Chair and Board, that completes your consent agenda.
Thank you. John, as you were querying if there was anyone here in opposition, I know that there was a brief scan of the room. Ms. Payton, no one was signed up in opposition for any of the cases on consent, just to confirm? Okay, very good. Well, recognizing we have 2 cases that have been pulled, our consent agenda has been revised. Commissioners, do you have any other revisions to make to consent? Commissioner Sheffield?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd like to add a revision to zoning case Z3 with the following stipulations: that the district commissioner to approve final building architecture, and that development and construction hour limitations will be from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. on Saturday, excuse me, and no work on Sunday unless approved by the district commissioner, and staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
Okay, I'll second that. That's a stipulation, so I don't need to second that. We'll make that motion in bank with the rest. John, do we want to confer with the applicant about that, or?
Is the applicant present for that case?
Okay.
The applicant is not in the room for that case.
Pardon?
The applicant is not in the room for that case, Commissioner Sheffield.
So what does that mean? I can't submit the...
What we could do is put that case on hold for right now and come back to it later on in the morning. We can give them a call real quick and find out if they're okay with that one condition.
Okay. Okay. And also, Madam Chair, Z4,
Yep.
the same, and I'll just read the same in the record.
Okay.
For the district commissioner to approve final building architecture. And excuse me, my throat is dry. I have a piece of candy in my mouth. Development and construction hour limitations for the project of 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. Saturday, and no work on Sunday unless approved by the district commissioner.
Is the applicant here for Z4? Sir, may you please come to the podium?
And that is the applicant for Z3. He's okay with your added condition,
Okay,
Commissioner.
and here's the applicant for Z4.
So we can leave Z3 on consent. The applicant is agreeable to your
Okay.
additional conditions.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, sir. Hi, we're just checking to see if you're okay with the stipulations the commissioner read into the record.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Oh, thank you.
That's it. Unless you want more, we can ask.
The less the better. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other commissioners? Are there any other adjustments to make to consent? All right. With that, I move that we approve the consent agenda as revised. Is there any discussion or questions? We'll call the question. The consent agenda passes 5-0. Anyone who's here associated with consent agenda is free to leave at this time, or you're free to stay and watch other cases be heard. And John will wait a couple minutes while they clear the room. John, before we get started with our first case, Commissioner Gambrill would like to make a comment regarding a case.
This is in regards to case number Z9. I know there's been a lot of last-minute coordination between the applicant and the homeowners and myself. Garvis, I'm asking you if you could please, I don't know, John, is the training room open?
Yes.
Okay. Garvis, would you be willing to go into the training room over here and take the homeowners that are here in attendance and discuss with them some of the things that have transpired with comments from them last night and then also between you and I today? Sure. Thank you. So for those who are in attendance for case Z9 of 2022, if you could please go with Garvis Sams to the training room and continue to discuss this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other cases that could potentially be resolved and put on consent today, Commissioners? No? Okay. I'm sorry, hold on, we might have another one. Let's put your mic, we need to hear it? Okay. All right. You
Okay,
go
ready?
ahead, John. Thank you.
Okay, moving into the continued or held cases to be heard. First case is rezoning case Z73 of 2021. Inver Group 3 LLC requests rezoning from R20 to RA4, and that has been revised to R15 for a single-family subdivision in land lots 626 and 627 of the 16th district. The property is located on the east side of Marniel Drive, south of Post Oak Street Road. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z73?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to rezoning case Z73. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
What would you like to do, Commissioner?
I didn't hear him ask if there was any opposition online.
John, is there any opposition online?
No, there's no one here.
There's no opposition online. You still want to hear the case, or would you like it added to consent? Okay.
Site plan's been revised, and we need to hear it.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. You can feel free to start when you're ready.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. I actually didn't have anything prepared to say this morning.
I can tell you, I cannot hear you through the mask. You can come closer to the microphone if you want to keep the mask on, or feel free
Okay.
to
You rather
remove your mask.
remove? Okay.
Yep.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having us. On behalf of IMB Group 3, we are making a request of rezoning, and upon Commissioner Burrell's advice, we've amended our rezoning request from RA4 to fall more in line with the density requirements allowable there in the area. I'm sorry. We have submitted, I believe, all necessary site plan and document requirements to Mr. Peterson and to Commissioner Burrell. I believe the standing site plan has been reduced from the initial 11 lot request at RA4 down to 7 lots for residential new construction purposes.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. We'll turn things over to Commissioner Burrell. If she has any questions, or if other commissioners do, we'll call you back up.
All right.
Yeah. Seeing there's no opposition, Commissioner Burrell.
Yeah, there's no opposition. Thank you, sir. We did meet with the applicant, John Peterson and I. Originally, this was a request for RA4 for, I believe, 11 lots at this location. It's currently zoned R20, but it is surrounded by R15, as you can see on the east side. So we met with the applicant and suggested for consideration a straight R15 plan and no variances. And that plan was received on February 3rd in the zoning office. And I have a copy of the site plan for the clerk if they need that. So I did reach out to the opposition neighbor in the immediate area across the street on Marneal because she had sent an email opposing the RA4. So I did reach out to her to make sure she was aware of the revised site plan that was online in time. So I have just a few additional stipulations that I'd like to add to the motion. And if the applicant could come back up and just make sure you're agreeable to these stipulations. And with that, I'm ready to make a motion, Madam Chair. Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve Z73 to straight R15 zoning category, maximum of 7 lots, no variances, sidewalks on the frontage of Marneal, screening around the detention pond, site plan received February 3rd at the zoning office, District Commissioner to approve final site plan, architectural style and elevations, and all staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. You're good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Great, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? No, I'll call the question. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
And thank you, sir, for working with us and
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all.
taking our advice.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair and Board, the next case also has a special land use permit with it. Would it be the board's wish to hear both cases together and then just make separate motions on each case? Okay. Okay, rezoning case Z2 of 2021, Pat Spencer, U-Haul Company of Atlanta West, requesting rezoning from CRC and R20 to CRC for self-storage, truck and trailer rental, and retail. in land lots 789 and 790 of the 19th District. The property is located on the west side of Ernest Barrett Parkway, on the south and east sides of Lower Brown Way. Additionally, it has a special land use permit connected with it, which is SLEP-1 of 2021. Pat Spencer U-Haul Company of Atlanta West requested a special land use permit for a self-storage truck and trailer rental and retail in land lots 789 and 790 of the 19th District. Property is located on the west side of Ernest Barrett Parkway, on the south and east sides of Lower Brown Way. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z2 or SLEP-1?
No.
Let the record show there's no one here in person opposed to these two cases, and there is no one here virtually opposed to these two cases either. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're free to begin your presentation whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good morning. My name's Jeff Bellier. I'm with CHA Consulting. I'm here with Pat Spencer with U-Haul, and just real briefly wanted to go over what we're proposing. This is a U-Haul development. As Mr. Peterson mentioned, it's located between Powder Springs Road and Ernest Barrett Parkway off of Lower Brown Way. The project is a U-Haul development consisting of a 3-story climate-controlled building totaling about 117,000 square feet, and a single-story pod storage building totaling about 7,000 square feet. As part of the Walmart development, there were 2 curb cuts that were stubbed for this property, and we're utilizing both of those curb cuts for our development. Staff had recommended the curb cut closest to Ernest Barrett Parkway be limited to a right-in, right-out, and left-out only, essentially restricting left-in movements, which we are okay with. And all utilities, storm drainage have all been stubbed to the property, so there aren't any variances that we are pursuing. And I'm going to ask Mr. Pat Spencer to go over the architectural piece.
Yeah, the other presentation. Yes, this one. Good morning. As Jeff stated earlier, we're proposing to build a climate-controlled self-storage facility. Although I don't have any specific elevations of what this project would look like, we have done so many throughout the country that I can show you a few just to give you kind of an idea. Now, U-Haul is really big into reuse, and I'm not sure if you've traveled along I-20 at Fulton Industrial of late, but we took that hotel and did a beautiful job with it. So I'm just going to show you a few. Of course, we go back to 1945. We've been helping families move from all over the United States and Canada. And we've done, here's one that we did in Elk Grove, California. It's all interior, climate controlled. There is some drive up out back, but what we're proposing is all interior, climate controlled storage. But that's what that building looks like there. Here's another one in Phoenix, Arizona that we did. Here's one that we did in Libertyville, Illinois, Lake Wiley, South Carolina. Here's another one in Laveen, Arizona. It's state-of-the-art. It's individually alarm rooms. We have a hands-free intercom system. It's 24-hour digital HD video security. We're state-of-the-art. And, of course, our sustainability is second to nobody, to be honest with you. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have, and I'll go ahead and conclude the presentation at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing there's no opposition, I'll turn things over to you, Commissioner Sheffield.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. I do have a question for the applicant. There are restrictions, zoning restrictions from Walmart placed on the
Yes.
property. Can you share with us what some of those restrictions are?
Well, I mean, it's anything that would complete with Walmart. So in our case, it'd be our propane and our alternative fuels. We will not do that here because that'll be in direct competition with Walmart. So if you think about that, that's any grocery stores. It's, I guess, anything that could be considered to compete with Walmart.
Okay. Also, in reading through your application, there was a mention of a share program.
Truck
Can you-
share?
Yeah, can
Trailer
you
share?
share a little bit about that
Well,
as it
it's-
relates to?
That's our truck rental program. So in what we found out, Commissioners, that typically within a 3-mile range is where we gather most of our customers from, which is good for us because it cuts down on CO2 emissions and things of that nature. But that's the truck share program. It's just our truck rental side of it and our trailer rental side of it. And then also we install trailer hitches, which I think one of the staff's recommendations was to make sure that it was inside, which it will be. We don't do any installations outside.
Okay. All right, thank you. Those were the only 2 questions I have. I'll open it up to my colleagues if you guys have any.
Thank you. I'm just looking at where the truck display is. Sometimes, even though it may be there to help with advertisement, it sometimes doesn't lend itself to the best aesthetics of where I've seen some other U-Haul facilities. And this doesn't look to have much of a setback from the roadway, so it's just
I think it's
right on. I'm sorry, help, yeah, thank you, I appreciate you doing that, but if you can help me understand the setback.
There is a 25-foot setback from Barrett Parkway, and then our truck shunting would be done, because our trucks are constantly coming and going. If they're sitting, then we're doing something wrong.
Okay.
So, but in this case, it would be, it's going to be to the right of the portable pod warehouse. There'd be some shunting there. Of course, there would be some up front as well. Obviously, our vans and our pickups, that's how we attract. U-Haul is typically, until recently, we haven't done any advertising on TV other than our storage pod business type.
Okay.
But that's how we advertise, is in use and on display.
I can understand that. I know for one of our storage facilities, when I was the district commissioner, we limited the numbers of U-Haul vehicles that could be in the front of the property for the purpose of advertisement, and then had the other ones parked either to the side or the rear of the property. And again, it just helped to improve the aesthetic of the facility. I see where the parking spaces are numbered, number 5, could be a potential area versus, well, there's 2 number 5s here. Or no, number 6 could be an area where trucks could be displayed. Because right now I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a lot of truck display parking. This is like 13 parking spaces along Barrett Parkway. Yeah. I'm done. Commissioner Burrell, if you have questions.
Yes. Typically with storage facilities for residential use, it's very light traffic. How does this affect traffic as far as trucks coming and going in storage?
Well, I believe we submitted a traffic pattern at the time of the application, or I think it was presented. But yes, as far as in our storage and U-Haul, it's very limited. Not everybody comes at the same time, obviously, and we do schedule our dispatches, usually in 15-minute increments. So as compared to other businesses, it's extremely, definitely low. And I'm sure Jeff could, I think it's 12 trips versus 185 trips for other businesses in a day. So we're significantly lower.
And I think, well, in the DOT comments, they recommended a traffic study. Was that done, or will that be done?
I believe that was done and submitted.
Is anybody here from DOT?
Oh, well, just the trip generation was submitted.
A full traffic study has not been completed yet.
Amy Diaz, DOT.
Hi, Amy. I believe Commissioner Burrow has a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Amy, what, was a traffic study done?
They did a submittal one, which gave us the trip generation for the development, but because of the low expected trips, they don't have to submit a full traffic study.
Okay. Okay. So that, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do any other commissioners have any? Yes, Commissioner Gambrell.
So just a few questions. I'm not sure, Commissioner Sheffield, or if you want the applicant to answer. Will there be landscaping along Barrett Parkway for this? Because I know along the Walmart, there is some landscaping, so will you have a landscaping requirement for here?
Everything you see in green there will be landscaping.
Okay, but are we talking trees, shrubs? What type of landscaping? Because to Chair Cupid's comment, you know, the impact of having a bunch of trucks packed along there could give a different visual, but depending on if we have it landscaped with bushes or trees, could potentially soften that. So that's where I didn't know if you had further clarification.
I'm just looking back in the notes. Because I did not find, I did not find that there was a landscape plan that was submitted with this site plan. But in the event this is approved, then I will have the applicant to submit a landscape plan.
With the approval by you and the county arborist.
Right, if I make that motion, yeah.
Okay, and then only as to the windows, I'm assuming they're going to be opaque, so that way if you are standing on the outside of the building, you will not see the doors looking in. I know that's been an issue in the past where windows have been put in reverse, so, but just to clarify, it's from standing outside of the building, people will not be able to see the doors internally.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any other questions or comments?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I am familiar with your U-Haul location on Fulton Industrial, and I think you guys did an amazing job with that conversion. And it looks fantastic. It looks great.
Thank you.
But my concern with this location is that there are a number of storage locations in maybe a half-mile or 1-mile radius to this proposed location. Just down East-West Connector, near the Dunkin' Donuts, there is a storage location. On Powder Springs Road, maybe a half-mile from here, 3/4 of a mile, there is another storage location. So while I appreciate your interest in developing this parcel, as you say, an amenity to the community, I am not in support of this application. I don't think that a storage or U-Haul company would be the best use of that property or a best service to the community as a whole. That is a very, that section there near Walmart, there are very few services at that location for the community. You have the Walmart, and that's pretty much it, unless you travel farther down East-West Connector. So for this property, I'd like to see more of a mixed-use development and not a business that's so targeted to one type of user, and that's someone that's moving or storing. I think that for this development, it should have a greater benefit to the community as a whole. And with that, Madam Chair, I make a motion to deny this application.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second? there any further, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I need a second. Go ahead, Commissioner Burrow. We need a second. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I don't have a second for discussion.
You will second for discussion?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
I'm not going to leave her hanging on her
It's
motion.
been,
Okay, I know you said there's other storage facilities, but it's not specific to U-Haul, right? No. Okay, this is specific to U-Haul trucks and trailers. And I guess I'd like to ask staff if the zoning category is appropriate and if there are any variances. I believe it's CRC.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we don't take comments from, I'm sorry, from the audience. You'd have to be here at the mic unless, okay.
To answer Commissioner Burrow's question, the CSC zoning district is a compatible use for this requested use. Self-storage and truck rental is where these two uses are permitted. And as far as variances go, there are none shown on the site plans. No variances shown.
Okay. Was there anyone here in opposition?
No, ma'am.
Was there anyone here in support? Okay, you didn't ask for that, because they were talking, and that's why I was asking.
Well, I believe the only people here for this application are the applicants and the developers.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, are you done with your comments?
Yeah.
Okay,
I just-
Commissioner. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Thank
I just
you.
was asking.
Can we pull up the GIS and show that whole corner? Because if I recall correctly, that GC portion that's right there in the corner where Powder Springs and Ernest Barrett, and then also then turns to East-West Connector, isn't there currently a U-Haul rental location there? Because I know I've driven by there and seen U-Hauls at that location.
Yeah, that location that the commissioner is pointing out, I believe that is a convenience store, and there might have been one or two U-Haul trucks there, but I'm not for sure if that's a U-Haul rental location.
And to add, there are a number of sites that aren't necessarily U-Haul
U-Haul.
sites that do rent
Rental,
U-Haul
right.
vehicles, so it's certainly possible. Yes, sir, would you like to add?
It's an independent dealer of ours, yes, but it's not owned and operated by U-Haul.
Okay.
Okay.
When you state it's an independent dealer, can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like?
Well, it's the other locations that you mentioned. It's a gas station. It could be a hardware store. Anybody that rents our equipment, of course, they paid a commission.
Okay.
And I have 158 in U-Haul Company of Atlanta West of those, and this is one of those.
Okay.
And can I say one other thing?
Yes, sir.
As far as in the other storage product, Commissioner, in that area, it's not quite the same. Most of that is outside drive-up, very limited.
I'm sorry,
climate-
okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I need to ask her, because this is the middle of a motion. I was asking
Right.
for a point of clarification for my comments. I
Sure.
don't know if it's appropriate for any additional commentary to be added while we're entertaining a motion. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, it's not on you, it's on me. I have to, remember, we're in the middle of a motion. I
Right.
apologize.
Right.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Commissioner Gamble, did you have any more questions?
I don't have any more questions, but I can understand Commissioner Sheffield's motion to this. It is a very large, intense self-storage facility being located here, especially given that they already have an off-site dealership that is next door that is presumed to be addressing the needs of the community. The 3-story in height is another concern of mine. Usually self-storages are 1-story, and then unless it comes before the board to go in higher than that. So I do think the intensity with the 3 stories, given the rest of the area, is a little out of keeping.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other comments or questions from commissioners? All right, please note we have a motion and a second, and this is the end of our discussion. We'll go ahead and call the question. The motion passes 5-0. There is an accompanying SLEP, John.
Yes, so we need a separate motion on the SLEP now.
All right, Commissioner, if you can
Sure.
make a motion on the SLEP, please.
Sure. I make a motion to deny SLEP-1.
All right, is there a second? Second. Any discussion? We'll call the question. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, next case on the agenda is rezoning case Z8 of 2022, Streamline Development Partners. The owner is requesting a rezoning from NRC to NRC for retail, commercial, and restaurants in landlots 68 and 165 of the 18th district. The property is located on the east side of Hickory Trail, on the southwest side of Veterans Memorial Highway. Is the applicant present? And the applicant may be with the folks from the Z9 in the Learning Center. So he is here, he's just in a different room. There are 16 people here virtually opposed to rezoning case Z8. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z8? Okay, there is no one here in person opposed, but there are 16 people online, including 3 people who want to speak. So at this moment, Madam Chair, would you like to take about a 5-minute break? So we
I
can
think
get-
that'll be helpful.
Okay.
Why don't we go ahead and make it a 10-minute? Why don't we come back at 10:10, please?
Okay.
Good morning and welcome back to our Board of Commissioners meeting. John, we can start with the next case, Z8.
Okay. And Mr. Sams is present now. We called Z8, and just to reiterate, there is no one here in person opposed, but there were 16 people online opposed, and 3 of those 16 are wanting to speak. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sams.
Good morning.
Good morning. Have we disposed of Z9 in terms of?
We'll address it after Z8.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to get ahead of you guys.
No
My bad.
problem.
Well, first of all, good morning, Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Garvis Sams. I'm with the law firm of Sams, Larkin, and Huff, and represent, in this case, Streamline Development Partners. Have with me today Mr. Joe Pegram of Streamline, so he and I will be available to respond to any questions you have at the appropriate time. This property at issue, as you can see, is a 3.804 acre tract. It's located there on Veterans Memorial Highway, east side of Hickory Trail. This property is platted out like that. It is situated like that on your GIS map, and it is in an area that is denominated, let me get back to that area denominated as a community activity center on your future land use map, which contemplates the type of uses which Streamline proposes for this site. This was a part of a 16-acre assemblage that was approved by the Board of Commissioners back in 2016. It was an application for rezoning and a SLEP for a school, private school, which included a 96,000 square foot school primary building, athletic fields, lighting, ancillary buildings, surface parking, the works. It was, like I said, a much larger site at 16 acres. That school never closed on it. I think went to another location, and then ultimately didn't close on this property, obviously. When we were negotiating the stipulations and conditions, we didn't include a reversion clause, so when the school didn't close within a certain amount of time, it stayed zoned in the NRC classification for school use only, which gives no present entitlement for anybody to use any portion of this 3.8 acre tract that's before you today. And I was the attorney that handled that, and so I'll take responsibility. There's no reversionary clause, but it would have been helpful considering the specificity of that proposal had there been. So since that action, there was a rezoning of this property application that was filed last year and withdrawn without prejudice. It was a standalone AutoZone store. Suggestions came up during the hearing and otherwise in discussions that we need to tie up the pin corner so that we have the totality of that corner property, as you can see. And so what we did, we were able to get that into contract as well. And what this site plan shows is a bifurcation of the 3.8 acre tract so that the pin corner shows restaurant or potential retail and combination restaurant. And then the other site to the right or the east is the AutoZone store working in tandem with that. Also, you can see that the preponderance of these properties located on Veterans Memorial are commercially oriented. Some of them across like Hickory Trail are even industrially oriented. Everything to our south, for the most part, is owned by C&D Recycling, and there are some residences down south of there as well, but it's definitely a commercial corridor. And as you can see with the various zoning classifications that exist, what is now proposed is entirely appropriate within the context of existing development. The application was heard and considered by the Planning Commission, which made a recommendation for approval for NRC, but eliminated any auto use related type of component, which would include the AutoZone. The zoning staff has recommended approval of the application in its totality. That was, of course, before the Planning Commission heard the application. But actually went before the Planning Commission with staff having placed it on a consent agenda for their consideration. But knowing that we had potential opposition, it was taken off at Planning Commission, zoned NRC, and it's in the condition, at least recommendation-wise, in the position that it is now. We have submitted specific architecture. This shows the pink corner, the restaurant retail, and also the positioning of the AutoZone as well. They would be developed, vertically constructed concurrently with each other, and it's not a build to suit, but it's somewhere we have uses that are attached to the handout that I've given you on the last page. I think in terms of the type of restaurants that we are talking to, and the type of response that we've had has been phenomenal. And it's interesting because there have been some standalone restaurants that aren't fast food. And by the way, one of the Planning Commission's steps was no fast food, and we're fine with that. The architectural style and composition of the building is as you're seeing right now, open from 7 a.m. until midnight. We cover the construction hours and all that information in our stipulation letter, and agree to no outside storage of any kind. I think one of the worries or concerns is that this AutoZone may be like the old Pep Boys and other places where you drive up and you go and buy a windshield wiper, and you wouldn't know how to attach it if you're me, so you would ask one of the guys to go out and help you do it. Well, we've agreed to a stipulation that no battery replacements, no light bulb replacements, nothing, no kind of work whatsoever in the outside of the building or in the parking areas. The signage will be consolidated between both, and as you can see by looking back at the site plan, we've also consolidated the point of ingress and egress onto Veterans Highways, so it's co-utilization by both of these tracks. And there is a secondary access point on Hickory Trail. We've agreed to the installation of sidewalk, curb, and gutter on Hickory Trail, as well as, of course, to the extent it's needed on Veterans. Also, in our discussions with the Mapleton Improvement Coalition, we agreed to a landscape oversight committee consisting of the typical suspects, Mick, my client, the Community Development Agency Director, and of course the District Commissioner on all of landscaping. And of course, we're agreeable to any terms or provisions regarding the architecture. If there's some input with that, we're willing to set up the Architectural Oversight Committee in tandem with the LOC, which would include the same personnel. And of course, we have to follow the architectural guidelines of the Veterans Memorial Highway Corridor Study. These buildings, of course, are conceptual in nature, but they're more precise in positioning right now, but we realize we're going to have to do that. We'll be submitting a photometric plan, so low-intensity type of lighting. Stormwater management has vetted this and agreed to the positioning of detention, so we know where we are in that regard. A lot of the industry was kind of scratching their heads when we brought this the first time, and now this time with the pushback on the AutoZone. It's a publicly traded Fortune 500 company. This is a pretty looking building, and I know what you've been trying to do, and you've done a miraculous job over the past decade in changing the future land use map designation on Bankhead Highway, Veterans Memorial, and Mapleton Parkway and others, and from CAC, which stripped down all those corridors, to NAC, which placed all the mom and pops, the used car lots in situations where once they discontinued, changed the business, or it ceased being of that nature, that they lost their non-conforming grandfathered use. So your plan has worked, but it's not a plan that I think was ever meant or established or championed to get rid of stores that are this cutting edge in nature, and one which would produce $7 million+ in sales and pay an ad valorem tax of $19,000 a year on the property. It's what any economic development director, I think, would want to see. And we do respectfully request that you follow your staff's recommendations, and to the extent that your Planning Commission has recommended NRC, we would ask that you approve that as well, but allow the AutoZone. So, Madam Chairwoman, at the appropriate time, Commissioner Sheffield, be glad to respond to questions.
Thank you, Garvis, for your presentation. We'll now hear from opposition. And just noting, because there are multiple people in opposition, just ask that you be mindful of the amount of time that you speak, as to give others opportunity to speak within the 10-minute time frame.
Two of the speakers are logged in. Our first speaker is Ray Thomas. Ray, you are unmuted.
Hi, Ray, you can go ahead.
Okay, good morning, Chairwoman and fellow commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak once again. I really appreciate it. My name is Ray Thomas, and I'm actually speaking on behalf of 3 different entities. First of all, I am a resident in the area. Where I live is only perhaps about a mile from the proposed site. Secondly, as the founder of the HOA network for the Mapleton Improvement Coalition, I'm speaking on behalf of the 20 HOAs that we have in that network, and also as chairman of the Mapleton Improvement Coalition. We are asking that the commission vote to deny the part of the application pertaining to auto-related uses. There are many auto parts retailers in Mapleton, and especially along Veterans Memorial Highway. Allowing another AutoZone or any other auto-related company at this site will make it very, very difficult for us to continue to try to get desirable consumer businesses in our area. I must compliment Attorney Sams for recognizing the hard work that has gone into the last 10 years to try to transform this corridor from a rundown-looking corridor to one that is more desirable and more fitting for the emergence of the Mapleton area. But there's still a lot of work left to be done in that corridor. Now, one of our community members counted 22 auto-related businesses in about a 3 to 4 mile stretch along Veterans, including this area. This is the 3rd time AutoZone has applied to be at or near this location. In the past, it's been denied. We're asking and we're urging you to deny it again. We're not against businesses coming into our area. However, we are completely saturated with auto-related businesses. And so I thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I'll turn it over to someone else.
Our next speaker is Robin Meyer. Robin, you're unmuted.
Thank you very much. My name is Robin Meyer. I'm the chairman of the zoning committee for the Mapleton Improvement Coalition, and I'd like to add a little bit to what Mr. Thomas has shared with you so far this morning. The Mapleton Improvement Coalition, to be clear, agrees with Mr. Sams that this is a good development for this property. We see the need for retail, and we certainly see the need for restaurants in our community. However, we specifically ask that you place prohibitions or conditions on any approval that would prevent AutoZone or any other auto-related businesses from locating on this property. We certainly, as you have heard and will hear, have a saturation of auto-related uses here in Mapleton. We appreciate the improvements made to the plan and would ask that you approve it with some significant, with some significant conditions. First, the no auto-related uses, including vehicle repair, sales, and parts sales. The prohibition against any fast food restaurants on this property. The other prohibited uses outlined in our letter, which you see from us frequently and to which you've agreed on many other properties in our community. That there be just one ground-mounted monument sign for the entire parcel. That a curb, gutter, and sidewalk be installed on Hickory Trail by the applicant along their entire property line. I'm not sure of the wording in Mr. Sam's letter, but that is what we would like to see happen. And then last, but certainly not least, contribution of $50,000 towards the traffic light at Buckner and Veterans Memorial Highway. When the property across the street, Buckner Crossroads, was zoned several years ago, they made a contribution towards that traffic light. Of course, it's under state DOT control. It has not yet met the required metrics as we understand it, but there's no question that one day it will. Right now, that intersection is extraordinarily congested, and this additional curb cut from onto Veterans will only congest it more. So in summary, we do very much appreciate that that this is a good location for the kinds of retail and restaurant and dining options that our community desires. Another AutoZone in Mapleton is not what is good for this property. At the Planning Commission hearing, Mr. Sam stated that if this AutoZone was approved, the AutoZone 4 miles west on Veterans would be closed. And so we would not have any addition to the number of auto-related businesses. However, that's not anything that as far as I can understand, the Board of Commissioners can impose and can enforce. So if this application were to be approved and AutoZone were to be allowed, I think we can fully expect that Mapleton would have 2 AutoZone businesses. So thank you very much for the time, and thank you especially to Jeannie Payton for her troubleshooting, and your IS department for troubleshooting those of us who wanted to participate virtually this morning. And we recommend and urge you to approve this application, but prohibit AutoZone and auto-related uses. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeannie, are there any other speakers in opposition?
No, those are the only 2 that were logged in to speak today.
Thank you. Commissioner Sheffield, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. If I can have Garvis to.
Yes, ma'am.
Just 1 or 2 questions. So Streamline Partners is your client, right?
Streamline Partners is my client, but I also represent the property owners as well in connection with their efforts to make sure that this property gets placed in a classification or an entitlement where it can be used as opposed to not used.
Okay. And who does Streamline represent?
Streamline is a development entity, one of the preferred developers for AutoZone as well as other commercial businesses.
Okay. So Streamline is developer for AutoZone.
It's one of
Right.
their preferred developers
Okay.
for the southeast region of the United States, yes.
But is their intent specifically for an AutoZone at this property, not one of their other clients?
Sorry, Commissioner, I don't think I understood.
I guess what I'm getting at with Streamline, and I've had a conversation with the applicant last year when the application was withdrawn. And my conversation with the gentleman, I don't remember his name at the moment.
Joe Pegram.
Joe, yep. At that time, I asked him to present a different type of development for the community. And his response to me was that he represents AutoZone, and that would be the only development that he would bring forth at this location.
For this particular site, that's
Right, for this particular site. So what's concerning to me is if his plan or his goal is for AutoZone, then I'm not connecting the dots and having this use prohibited if his client is AutoZone. That's the piece that I'm missing. So he's representing AutoZone, but at the same time, he would agree to have a prohibited use of car-related businesses. And that's just not making...
No.
Okay.
He's not acquiescing to that at all. I had to present this alternatively since I'm representing both the property owners and Streamline with this. And the fact of the matter is today, Commissioner, no one could get a permit to develop any portion of this 3.8 acre tract and possibly the entirety of the 16 acre. I don't know how much of it has come back or not. So my goal is to get it zoned in a constitutionally permissible manner so that it can be used. If for some reason the AutoZone is precluded, then they're out of the picture and the developer becomes the property owners themselves.
And Commissioner, I just want to add to that too. I hear what Garvis is saying, but there is a constitutionally approved use on the property today, and that's a school. Right now, you don't have a school coming forward, but this is not like a zoning that has been grandfathered and there's no constitutional use. There is a very limited constitutional use, which I think is more accurate of
Right.
what's at play.
Okay.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you guys have any questions for Garvis? No? Okay. All right. We've heard from the community, not just on this application, but for 2 previous applications for AutoZone. And while the Planning Commission recommended a limited use or prohibited use of auto-related businesses, I don't know, or I'm not confident that we won't be presented, whether this board or future board, with removing that use to allow the AutoZone. More specifically, my concern is along this corridor, and Garvis, you're very familiar with this, and this has been the sentiment of our speakers today and those that are in opposition. There's a saturation of auto-related businesses along Veterans Memorial. Some of the franchise companies are the AutoZone, which is on Veterans Memorial. There is an Advanced Auto also on Veterans Memorial. There is an O'Reilly's also on Veterans Memorial. And those are the franchise businesses. But then we have the smaller mom and pop businesses. We have tire businesses, and the list goes on. So I do stand with the community with respect to denying this application. And while I understand and appreciate that there was an attempt to add prohibited uses of auto-related businesses, I am still inclined to deny the application. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. And I make a motion to deny zoning application Z8.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
If the location, there's 2 buildings, one's retail restaurant, which, do you support that? Would you support that? And if the 2 buildings were retail, restaurant, just not automotive,
Right.
would that be acceptable, or?
Yeah, and I mean, that pretty much supports what the Planning Commission outlined with their prohibited use. But again, I'm just not confident that we will not be addressed with this, with the request to remove that use.
Well, you can add prohibited uses in that. Okay, I'm just asking to see if, what they're, I mean, it is zoned for retail residential. Restaurant, the other building. Okay. We have a motion and a second. I'm just asking.
Would you like to respond, Commissioner?
Right, it is for a restaurant, but it's still owned by Streamline.
No, ma'am.
So the
Streamline doesn't own any of the property. It's just a preferred developer. It has no ownership interest.
Right, but it would be their intent as the developer.
If it comes out of here today with AutoZone or auto-permitted uses being not permitted, then AutoZone is just out of the picture. And so I'm working with the developer, the property owner and a future developer. And to follow up on Commissioner Burrell's suggestion idea, we'd be more than happy, the owners of the property, to bring back the specific uses for both of the retail buildings, whether it is restaurant or retail, to the district commissioner for approval.
Commissioner Richardson?
Is the concern that putting a prohibited use wouldn't withstand the test of time?
Correct.
And this may be a question for legal. Is there a stip that can be put forth that the recommended uses have to be approved within a certain time frame of an approved zoning?
If I understand the question. All the way to the left. Hello? Sorry about that.
Good.
So you are asking if it's a permitted use or a prohibited use? If you could restate your question, please, I'm sorry.
So take the scenario where there is an approval with a list of prohibited uses. Can there be a stipulation that requires the applicant to provide the uses for that site plan within a set time, like within 6 months, within 1 year?
There have been several times where we ask that development occur, and I think this is how this property got to this position anyway, in that if development doesn't occur by a certain time frame, then it reverts back to what it was zoned originally prior to the decision. And that is a typical, well, I shouldn't say typical, it has been seen in our zoning conditions with the reversion.
Thank you. That, I think, could potentially address the concern.
Commissioner Gamble?
So my understanding is this parcel originally came in and was rezoned as a school. So this is one of several parcels that was rezoned for the school, which, as the chair said earlier, has a limited constitutional use that's currently designated to that parcel. My concern here is we still have the remaining portion of this parcel that was combined is still designated for school use. And now we are taking out one section of it and totally putting in a use that isn't necessarily compatible with the school which was originally approved. So I can understand the motion to deny because this is not compatible with the existing use of the school, but it then raises the question of, these parcels were a combined unit under a separate zoning, under a separate site plan. So how does that now impact that zoning and those property owners and the use of their property?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sheffield, I understand your concern with this property, and I tell you, it's taken me a long time to learn that sometimes no doesn't work in your favor, that sometimes you can add more conditions that provide more controls to a site by getting it closer to what you want and getting stipulations that allow you to weigh in and better determine the outcome of it. Now, not approving this today doesn't preclude you'll have a 12-month window, but the owner can come in and still continue to make requests. And I think, some consideration of what you would like to see could provide them some direction, which provides a path forward for this area. As it's redeveloping, there are a lot of residents moving into the area, so with the NRC or retail use, you may be able to get it zoned in a way that complements the increasing home ownership out there. I can share with you, I'm not inclined to support this just because there's been a pattern of what we've seen in this area, that when you do have these uses, it limits the ability for other neighborhood-oriented amenities to come in. And it reduces the quality of life for residents in the area because it makes other neighborhood uses less apt to come into the area. So the community never evolves into having development that complements someone being able to fully engage in their community. Again, it becomes detrimental to their quality of life. And you can see that up and down Veterans Memorial, which I think has prompted a lot of the emails and opposition. And, that's my concern about this application and, a prior application that we heard today. It's one thing if they're coming into areas that, are fully expanded out, where there's a strong sense of neighborhood stabilization. But on Veterans Memorial, it's getting there, but it's not there. And so I'm concerned with this use, and this kind of gets to Commissioner Granville's point, is the compatibility of other uses that can come into that area. And certainly it's not compatible with the school, but again, with some other neighborhood uses, is this use going to be compatible with that development? I've talked to commercial developers that say when you bring in certain types of development, it's a signal to tell other developers what is, allowable or usable or desirable in that area. So every zoning decision you make can have a positive or negative impact on the quality of life when it comes to development of neighborhood amenities. Because I know very acutely of what's going on at Veterans Memorial, the opportunity you have here today, I'm not inclined to support the auto zone. I am inclined to support NRC with stipulations. I understand your concerns here today, and you'll have the ability to address it again should you desire to see something different. But even if you don't zone to a site plan that's here today, it's possible to zone it to NRC and to limit certain uses, to still give you control over the types of uses, and a signal to the property owner and to other potential developers where you're going with this site. Because right now, when people look at that site, they're going to see NRC school, and it could make people shy away who could potentially come in and develop in that area. Yes, Commissioner Burrow.
Okay, it is currently zoned NRC and in a NAC, but for the school use only. So, as we know, retail, commercial, restaurant is allowed in NRC, but you can always add prohibited uses, and with the specific use, as Mr. Sams offered, that the any use would have to come back to you for approval. And you have a list of prohibited uses that are enforceable if they're in a STIP. So I mean, I understand you don't want anything auto-related. I have the same situation on Canton Road as you do on Veterans Memorial. And I get that, but with stipulations and with, you approving whatever use, as long as it's retail or restaurant, commercial, and you have a list of prohibited uses, I think you can control that. And as Commissioner Richardson suggested, a time frame for that to come back to you, and you get final approval. And you can meet with Mick and whoever as being acceptable. I'm just, if it's NRC in a NAC, so I don't know. But it's up to you. You know your district. And I just am, rather than deny it and maybe hold it for other recommended uses to come back. I don't know. That's up to you.
Alice, I think the justification provided by Commissioner Gambrill is sufficient.
I mean, I appreciate everyone's input, and there is about, I think, an acreage of land that would still have the restrictions of the school. And while I do understand that we can have prohibited uses. It is not uncommon for an applicant to come back before the board and request that those uses be removed. And with that, Madam Chair, if the applicant would like to bring a different plan, I would be open to that, but I still stand by my motion.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? We'll call the question. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Commissioner.
I'm sorry, I have a question. I have an administrative question I need to ask. Commissioners, let's take a 5-minute break before we hear Z9 for the next. Okay. Go ahead, Garvis. I know you want to.
Thank you.
From having to wait.
John, do you need to read the case in for me to make an announcement?
Don't need to read it in, but it's my understanding that the applicant for rezoning case Z9 of 2022 Winslow Properties has come to an agreement with the neighbors to continue the case for 1 month to work on the plan.
Certainly. Commissioner Gambrill.
I would like to make a motion that we continue Z9 of 2022 until the March 15th hearing date.
Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? We'll call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Garvis.
Commissioner.
Need 5 minutes, Commissioners, for a break.
Next case on the agenda is LEP-5, Rick Coleman, requesting a temporary land use permit for a firewood storage business in land lot 874 of the 17th District. The property is located on the east side of Leland Drive, north of Windy Hill Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP-5? No. Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to LEP-5. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Thank you for having me today. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way, also, one day late.
We'll take it.
So I am a chiropractor. I have two businesses in Cobb County, one up by the Home Depot off of Barrett Parkway, and then another one off of Leland Drive. I have twin boys that are 10 years old. 5 years ago, one of our family kind of ways we wanted to raise our children was to keep them off of video games and off of cell phones and to teach them a work ethic like what I grew up with, outdoors, and we've done a pretty good job with that so far. So my boys came to me and we burned a lot of firewood, and we started storing firewood at our chiropractic office, and they would help me split it, and we would get out there and work, and we would give it to friends. We ended up having a lot left over, and the apartment complex behind our chiropractic office, people come and say, we're having a hard time paying our electric bill. Can we have some firewood? We'll give them firewood. So over the last several years, we have all this firewood. We've lost multiple trees, and we had all this firewood stored up. And about a year ago, I think it was a year ago, an officer walked in the door, Officer Foster from Cobb County, who was really great and really super nice. Actually, my whole experience with Cobb County has been wonderful. I appreciate that, going down to the zoning office, talking to Mr. Peterson, the gentleman that works the front. I'm sorry, I can't remember his desk or his name. Everything's been great. Officer Foster has worked with me. We had some oak trees that were dropped on our property, and they left them in the right of way. And then someone must have complained and said, hey, you've got some oak trees on the right of way. So I got a citation. So I've been working with Officer Foster. But at that moment, I had a lot of firewood. And Officer Foster said, well, you're going to have to get rid of this firewood. And I said, there's thousands of pieces of firewood. I don't think I can do that right away until we get through winter, but I'll start cleaning it up. So we've worked tirelessly to try to clean it up, but we still have firewood there. I invested in a fence to hide it. I've already spent $5,000 on a fence, I think $5,500 on a fence on half of the property. I can show you a picture of that. If I could put that up, that would be great. Thank you, sir. And just to hide it. So I went to the zoning office, and because they said, oh, you need to apply for a temporary land use permit. So I went to the zoning office, and I was shot down very fast because they said, oh, no, that's zoned for office because you're a chiropractic office. You can't have a special land use permit. And they said, you'll have to rezone it to LI or HI. But then you can't have your chiropractic office there. So I went home and told that to my wife, and I thought she was going to strangle me. She said, you want to really have firewood storage, but no chiropractic office. So that was the first of my getting in trouble with my wife. So obviously we could not do that. So then Officer Foster gave me the idea to speak with Commissioner Richardson. I went and spoke with her. Her and her staff were fantastic in giving me the option of trying to figure something out. So to make a long story short, I applied for a 2-year special land use permit 2 weeks ago, and the board was super nice in that they recommended that I get the special land use permit until I can try to buy another property or figure out what I need to do to move the firewood storage. So they gave me a year, but they also gave me a stipulation of, I had initially told them, I will hide the firewood so no one sees it so that it will look like that versus looking like this from the road. we don't want people driving by and seeing firewood laying there. So I asked if I could put up a fence and hide the firewood, but keep the firewood not stacked high so that no one would see it from the road. So let's switch back the other picture. The other picture looks prettier. Thank you. I asked if I could do that, and they said, yes, for 1 year, but we would also like to see some landscaping. So, of course, I went home, talked to my wife, and said, great, they're going to allow us 1 year. And, of course, because she's the real boss and a lot smarter than me, she said, but that's a huge investment for only 1 year. And I said, oh, my gosh, you're right. Not only would we add an additional fence that's $6,000, but landscaping alone in front of the fence would probably cost another $4,000 to $5,000. And then just this morning she said, oh, by the way, don't forget that you can't just put in plants without water. So you're going to have irrigation. And just in my previous experience with other commercial properties, I expect at least another $5,000 to $7,000 in irrigation. So the only thing I have to say is I really appreciate that they gave me a year. I'm very thankful for that. I hated to even ask for the additional year, but if I was hoping, I am hoping that the commissioners would entertain that I have a 2-year special land use permit because of the amount of investment that I'm going to put into the property with not only the fence, but the landscaping, and of course, the boss told me don't forget about irrigation. And that's all I have. I'm open to questions.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Considering there's no opposition, Commissioner Richardson.
Hello, good to see you again.
Yes, ma'am.
So since our last conversation, and I appreciate you doing that presentation and retelling how we got here, have you made any progress in identifying a new location?
No, I have not. I actually just talked to Mr. Peterson about how I can find out where an LI or an HI is. I have been working to clear the property, brought in dumpsters, cleared it, made it look a lot nicer. I'm meeting on Thursday with a fencing company, the same fencing company, Bravo Fence, that did this side, about moving forward with the other side.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I've not found another location, but I'm working tirelessly to do that.
Okay, because I too am concerned about the investment in a temporary, but with the goal that this is not even here at all. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
the next
ma'am.
question I have is, when do you receive wood to cut and from where?
So I have a few different sources. I have a chiropractic patient that also owns a tree service. And when he takes down a tree, he's actually done a lot of work for me on my property. If we lose a tree, instead of just dropping it and hauling it off and taking it to the dump, I'm just an old country boy. I believe in chopping it up and using it and splitting it and having a wood splitting party with my neighbors and supplying people with firewood. So we do that, but also I do have a chiropractic patient of mine where if he takes down a nice oak tree or pecan tree or something like that, he'll call me and say, hey, do you want this pecan tree? And then I say, yes, I would love that. And then he'll bring it to me. And then I cut it up and store it there, and it has to be stored for at least a year before it's ready to burn.
Okay, what time of day do you normally receive these?
So we have, because I was here and I heard some other cases, it taught me a lot. So one is we do no pickup of firewood. We don't sell on-site firewood. We do none of that. This is strictly a firewood storage place. We have no signs. It's a chiropractic office. That's the only signage we have. We also have, they don't have signage, but David Baggett and the Cobb County engineers that do a lot of work for Cobb County actually rent half the building from me. So I supply a lot of those guys with firewood also, if that helps or not. But so they're actually a tenant of ours, the Cobb County. But it's all done during the day. We don't, no weekends, no late hours, nothing like that. And as far as I know, we've never had any complaints of noise, or we've had firewood there for years and never had a complaint until they dropped the firewood on the right-of-way. But also, I did in my previous packet get approval from the hotel across the street, the extended stay, and the other hotel. So all 3 hotels said we have no problem with you having firewood storage there, the other tenants on that road. It's kind of a private little niche road that, I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar with it, that a lot of people don't really go back down that road that much.
Yes, Leland is popular. And you did address some of this already, but what activities are included as of now, or as of the time of the citation? Obviously, there's some transport. So when you're bringing something to another area, you're transporting that on a van, a truck?
No, just my Ford pickup truck.
Okay. Does chopping take place at the site?
We do a little bit of wood splitting at the site, but most of it is done at my home.
Okay, and you said no pickups?
No big trucks, nothing is stored there. Actually, I did let the firewood company, a patient of mine, he was having trouble with his trucking company where he was storing it, and they did leave their vehicles there for a couple months, November and December of last year, and just gave me a little bit of money to leave his trucks there. But then Officer Foster came to me and said, you know, you can't have trucks stored there, and we had them removed immediately. She's been great.
Okay. What other activities?
It's a chiropractic office. It's a chiropractic office. We have 5 offices in the Metro Atlanta area. It's the chiropractic center. We have no other activities that go on there. There's a lot of strange activities that go on Leland. I'm sure you're very familiar. But no, we are a stand-up chiropractic office business. We rent out half the building to, like I said, to the Cobb County, and they're all great guys.
What about activities related to the firewood? Any other activities related?
Oh, no, ma'am, whatsoever. We've donated to Sandy Springs the last couple years. We've donated to Holy Spirit Prep the last few years. Last year alone, we raised over $2,000 for Holy Spirit School by donating firewood to them. All their parents in drive-through, if you wanted firewood, open up your trunk. And we, we're trying to teach work ethic, made the little kids get out there with wheelbarrows and fill all the trunks of cars up with firewood.
So for that drive-through, is that something that took place on this property, or is that something
No, ma'am. We took
firewood on your Ford truck to the school?
Yes, ma'am. We took all the wood to the location, and that's it. The only trucks that come in and out is my Ford F-250 that I drive back and forth to work.
Okay. Have you had any conversations with anyone in opposition? I know I've seen the list of those that are in support.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Other than my wife occasionally that says it takes time away from her.
And then this goes to staff. This is compatible with the JLUS?
The property is located in APZ2, which does allow commercial activity, and Dobbins was notified on December 22nd about this permit, and they have not sent me any letters opposing it or any other type of letters.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all of my questions that I have for you. Right now, open to the other commissioners.
Commissioner Sheffield? Or?
Yeah. You mentioned that you had not had any conversations with anyone in opposition, but are there any people in opposition?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Regarding the landscaping, it will be on the, in front of the fence?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that fence looks awfully close to the curb, to the street. So if you have landscaping there, would that be in the county's right-of-way?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That fence on that side, but I just looked up the Cobb County. I think I know where you're going. I just looked up the Cobb County ordinances of how far you're supposed to have the fence back from the right-of-way, and that's where I put the fence.
Okay. Is there a plan to move this back, or is your plan to leave it the way?
Well, so the fence that you're looking at there is just probably 20 feet. The longer fence that would be on the other side of the property that's not put up yet, we have no plans for it as of now. You just tell me how far you want it from the property line. If you want plants, and I'll do it. I'm open to anything you suggest.
Okay. Is Amy still on the line with DOT?
Yes, DOT.
Amy, can you just weigh in and provide some feedback for us on where this fence is located?
So, looking at the right-of-way for Leland Drive is a local roadway, so the right-of-way would be at 25 feet from center line. Pulling up their plan now, to see if it gives me a measurement. So they are showing the fence at 28 feet from center line, so that is not on the right of way. However, landscaping, you're correct, would probably be within the right of way, or at least right up to it.
Okay, thank you. That was all that I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
With all zone, excuse me, go ahead, Commissioner Burrow.
Okay, and this, I guess, is for John. Because I couldn't understand what you said, but this is zoned O&I, which is a permittable use in the APZ2 zone, O&I for the office.
Correct.
But the firewood storage and operation at this location is not a use. LI and HI are not permitted uses in there, right? Or are they?
The firewood storage is not a permitted use in the O&I zoning district. It doesn't allow that type of outdoor storage. As far as the APZ2 goes, it would allow industrial use. And like I said, we did send the Air Force a letter. We have not heard back from them. And they kind of look at use.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear.
All right. The Air Force was notified 2 months ago regarding this application coming forward, and we did not get a reply from them regarding this. Commercial and industrial uses are permitted in APZ2, but the Air Force takes a look at them case by case. Like if this was a use that was a commercial use that generated smoke or steam or something like that, the Air Force would probably oppose that type of use. But this use, it's close to the ground. It doesn't impact the flight of airplanes in and out of Dobbins Air Force Base.
Okay, and it was a result of code enforcement?
Correct.
It was a result of code enforcement?
Correct.
And why is staff recommending denial if you're just telling me that it's acceptable use?
It is an APZ2, but it's not permitted in the O&I zoning district. And the applicant did come into our office, and he did inquire about rezoning it to light industrial or heavy industrial. And, it was our opinion that that probably would not be approved at this location.
Okay, and there's been a change in command at Dobbins, and I emailed Director Gwen the current contacts. I don't know who you notified 2 months ago, but they're probably not there anymore, but
Well,
anyhow.
we actually notified 3 folks at Dobbins. We notified William Mallory, who's the civil base engineer. We notified Jay Thomas, who's the mission assurance officer. And we also notified Osmond Urson, who's the base community planner.
Okay. One of those, maybe 2 of those are not still there, but Osmond is.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yeah, and just to that point specifically about the permitted uses, it is my understanding that industrial and commercial are permitted uses per the joint land use study that came out of the base and the county's view on that as a part of the matrix where there can be permission. Where there is a question here is whether or not this parcel should be allowed to store the firewood. But to that point, you did bring up something that piqued my interest. Burning of firewood, you mentioned you burn a lot of, is there any burning that takes place
None.
on this parcel?
None whatsoever.
Thank you. All right, we can continue with questions for other commissioners.
Commissioner Gambrell?
Just a couple observations. I'm glad that the applicant has support of the surrounding businesses. I agree the current state before the fence was quite challenging, and I'm guessing that's what resulted in the code enforcement, because from looking at the notes, it doesn't sound like anybody called it in, but this was just our code enforcement was driving and noticed that. Is that correct? Can you verify that, John?
Commissioner Guerra, I'm not sure how code enforcement got it, if it was a complaint or if they were just driving by and saw it.
Okay, because kind of the way I'm reading it, it almost sounded like it was a drive-by. They noticed this. They stepped up to address it. I think the fence is a good kind of middle way to allow the firewood stacking to continue, but to obstruct the view. I'm not really worried about landscaping because there is no landscaping along Leland. It would be different if there was landscaping to help buffer. So I think the fence is helping give that visual screening. I would just hope that, again, everything be contained within that fencing, and then there be restrictions as far as, when trees can be delivered, because it sounds like you get them from, other sources, as far as to when chopping can happen and such like that. But otherwise, I understand why they're asking for the SLEP, and I think the fence is a good first step going forward.
Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? At first blush, Commissioner Richardson, this use seems quite incompatible with the O&I, but, Leland Drive is an eclectic roadway that has come before us with a variety of uses and issues.
I'm sorry, I just can't hear you.
I said Leland.
That's why I was looking
I'm
at-
sorry.
I got a bad ear, and I'm sorry.
I will repeat. At first blush, this does not seem to be a compatible use with O&I, with office and financial institutions generally typifying the uses in O&I. But I also know Leland Drive is quite an eclectic street. It has a variety of uses and a variety of issues that has been before us. And, all zoning cases, they certainly influence the outcome of others, but, each one can be heard on its own merit and taken on a case-by-case basis. And I think that's why we have LUPs, so people can consider uses on a case-by-case basis. And I think there's an argument for supporting it. It does come back before us every year or two based on the duration, or you could put it in a time frame less than 2 years. But it does come back before us for us to see if the way that the property is being used does become problematic for those that are there. It's difficult to know what prompted the code enforcement issue. There could be a challenge if somebody's calling it in because they don't perceive that's appropriate there. And really, we know it isn't. And we don't have the benefit of fleshing that out a little bit more. And so, for areas that aren't used to activating code enforcement, it may take a lot for one person to call code enforcement, but by the time they do, it doesn't mean that they haven't been dealing with that issue for some time, and that others don't feel that way. They just aren't used to asserting their code enforcement right. And so, I can't speak knowing what has transpired. I can only conjecture about what could have potentially prompted the code enforcement issue. But here today, there's no one in opposition. But again, people don't necessarily know how to get involved in zoning sometimes. And if there's any saving grace, there's opportunity for this to come back within 2 years, but at first blush, this does not seem appropriate for general office and institutional. I think Commissioner Burrow, I'm sorry, did you want to respond first, Commissioner Richardson, or you?
My responses will lead up to what my motion is.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Burrow.
Yes, the Planning Commission recommended 1 year to give you a chance to see how it goes without any, issues or violations or complaints. And you stated that you've already invested with the fence, so that's already in place.
Half of it.
Pardon?
Half of it, ma'am.
Okay.
So we only did just the front part, but the other part we
On
haven't.
the side.
Right.
One
And-
side.
Yes, ma'am. And to throw in just one additional comment, if I may, I've actually had, just to be completely, I'm just old country boy, so I'm just going to tell it to you like it is. I've actually had the firewood there for over 5 years, that off and on firewood for 5 years. And other than the going on the right of way, I don't think we've ever had a complaint. No code enforcement officer has ever come by. And our chiropractic office has been there for over 10 years, I think.
Yeah, and
If that helps at all.
that is zoned appropriately. But the pictures, the piles of wood in this picture are very unsightly. And
Yes,
not-
ma'am.
And that's why you were cited, but also because of the use. But my question is, with Commissioner Gambrell's suggestion on the landscaping not really being needed and just the fence, and he's already invested in half the fence, it's also my understanding that you are looking for another location. And as you know, a LUP is a temporary land use permit, which can give you up to 2 years. But it was suggested by Planning Commission, recommended 1 year to give it a chance, even though it's not compatible with O&I, to give you a chance. So if you're looking to relocate at a more permanent site that is appropriate, without the landscaping, would 1 year be sufficient?
Are you asking me that question?
Well, yeah, but,
Part of my comment.
Commissioner Richardson will have the final say here. Okay.
We can.
I'm just asking based on, and I don't know what your motion is going to be, so.
Why don't we let Commissioner Richardson respond?
Okay.
It's a great suggestion. So in the fact that this is a temporary, what we spoke about.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to be country boy here, that the goal of this is to move to a more permanent location. The goal
Yes,
of this is
ma'am.
not to extend the utility of the parcel that you occupy currently with the chiropractic office.
Yes, ma'am.
And to formalize some of the activities that you're doing as well, because there is a benefit to the community. So in that effort, I think that by doing the landscaping, it would be an investment that would actually distract from the primary goal.
Yes, ma'am.
So what I am more amenable to is removing some of those. What I'm looking at is removing some of the stipulations that would go into how we hide the storage, that there is sufficient hiding of the storage, but that there is a shorter time on the LUP in order to facilitate or encourage the identification of another parcel.
Yes, ma'am.
And so my question would be on that, given that we're still in the winter months, that a new parcel should be identified by you within 8 months. And so I don't know if an 8-month time period is an option for temporary land use. I'm assuming anything, yeah, okay. That 8 months would get you time to find a new location without the extra investment.
So even if I couldn't find an additional property, which we can search, and of course that takes time, finding it, making sure it's properly zoned, I mean, you're all very familiar with what all goes into it, surveys, all of that to buy a property. For me, our firewood, like if we couldn't find a property and just said, forget it, we're out, would take us through next March to be able to clear the property completely of all of the firewood that is currently there now. Because we have firewood there now that we can't sell or distribute to people because it's what's called green wood, meaning it's freshly cut. But if we can get through next firewood season, then we could at least have another option of either it's all gone or we find another facility or another property, which 8 months would put me at, what are we at? February, March, May. Would be very difficult, to be candid.
Okay.
It's just hard for me to move a lot of it in the summer months when people aren't burning firewood.
Okay. I appreciate your insight on firewood season. It's an area I'm not that familiar with. Okay.
So to help with a follow-up, so the firewood that I have now will be used next, or not next, this coming beginning, I always say beginning football season, when people start sitting outside watching football, burning fires. So September, October. So my busy months of getting rid of it, truck coming in and out, loading up 3-phase cords, taking it to people, taking it to the city of Sandy Springs, is all beginning September of 2022 and will end February, early March of 2023. So that would give me the option of getting rid of it completely, or I have to find another facility by then.
Understood. Basically, the problem will be resolved either way.
Yes, ma'am, correct.
All right, I guess I'm ready.
I mean, I would love 2 years, but it might not be an option.
I understand. Sure.
Considering that this is a temporary land use, has there been consideration to restricting accepting any additional wood? You mentioned a short while ago that the wood has to be seasoned before selling, and I was just wondering if you are still accepting wood or if that's been...
Well, I was waiting on this date. This was the final date to where I can kind of make a decision on, okay, we have enough for next year, stop, or you can continue to bring it. So yes, that's definitely going to be taken into consideration based off of how much wood I've brought in and gotten rid of over the last 5 years, just in my experience. So yes, ma'am, that's a valid point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I can clarify a couple things here, just for my own sake. You do not sell this firewood to make a profit for yourself, correct?
No, ma'am.
So you have now invested, if I recall correctly, $6,000 in a fence.
Yes, ma'am.
The fence is only partially covering the area. You know, this board might be expecting him to put in the rest of the fence, which is an additional coverage, to then restrict him on how long he can continue doing this as a service to the community. So that's where I'm kind of struggling with some of the conversation is, you know, while the firewood sale is not allowed in the O&I, it is allowed in HI and LI, which is allowed here. Are we putting undue restrictions on him and costing him a burden by putting up a fence knowing that that fence is only going to serve a purpose for a year? That's where I'm kind of struggling with this. Again, I agree with Commissioner Burrell. You know, when I first saw the pictures, I was like, no way, you can't do this. However, they are cleaning it up. So if this does say as a nonprofit type of a use, you know, he is investing his own money in here. Why are we going to look at potentially only giving him a year and then saying you've got to end this, knowing the investment he has to put in just for a year?
Commissioner Richardson.
As far as I understand, the alternative is he doesn't do it at all because it's not allowed.
hence the land use. And I know, there's discussion on land use permits, and I know I've got some in my district that have been renewed again and again and again, even though there is supposedly that, 2-year restriction on them. And I think we could all learn that we've got them in our district that have been continually renewed, because there is a business that is happening that requires the land use permit, but it's not being, disruptive to the neighbors, and thus they are allowed to continue. To me, this is, and I don't think he's got a nonprofit status. He hasn't
No.
said it.
Which is,
But, we do have people that do things for others and don't expect anything in return. So that's where, I can understand your struggle on this, because again, the adjacent neighbors aren't complaining. He is trying to serve a need within the community and allow others to, potentially raise funds to, help give back. So I'm kind of struggling with knowing we're going to require additional fencing, we're going to require all this other investment, but then he won't be able to use that to continue doing his service to the community.
Commissioner Richardson, have you made a motion?
no.
Okay, so right now we don't know what restrictions she's going to place or she's considered placing on it. We've had a lot of discussion, and I know you keep wanting to hop in, so I want to give you the benefit of making the motion, and then we can address what conditions we know are actually being considered. Yeah.
All right. Well, then I guess I'll make a motion. And I'm a fan of this becoming more formalized. I referenced the more formalization around this. And like I said, I do appreciate what you do for the community, and hence the consideration of this land use permit. So with that, my motion is to approve this with these stipulations, that there is a 6-foot fence around the perimeter to obscure the site of the firewood, and that the height of the firewood being stored is no higher than the fence itself, to not require the landscaping around it, nor the irrigation required for that, to make sure that there is no burning of the firewood, to make sure that there is no accepting of new wood at that location. And one moment, there's something that I saw recommended. Nope, that is everything on there, okay. And to limit any delivery, even though we said no accepting of wood, but if there is anything, any transport, to limit that to the daytime hours, any chopping to the daytime hours.
Can you be more restrictive on the hours?
Say, I think, what, is it 9 a.m.? Or what's in our noise ordinance on that, to be consistent? 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Not till 11.
No. That's longer than. Okay, 9 a.m. to.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking construction, not noise ordinance.
Sorry. Okay.
You can limit it to before 11 p.m.
Yeah, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And for 12 months.
Okay, does that conclude your motion?
I believe so, if I can read my own notes.
Okay, take your time.
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Yes, now, any further discussion on the stipulations that Commissioner Richardson read, or her motion? Yes, Commissioner Gamble.
Just for clarification on the 6-foot fence, what he has constructed, is that sufficient, or are you expecting him to enclose the remainder of the area?
I would, because I don't have the full view of it, I added in to obscure the view of the firewood. I'm not sure, because if it doesn't obscure the view of the firewood, then we still have the visual issues occurring. Perhaps, I don't know if he can speak to, is that protocol?
I thought your motion said to enclose it.
Enclose it, yeah, perimeter, then.
So that it would be, that's my presumption that enclosed means perimeter.
Okay.
Am I allowed
Can
to
he-
ask one question?
Okay,
It's your
go ahead.
motion if you want.
Go ahead and answer that.
So if I have no problem putting up the fence to hide it. I think that's a great idea. I'm the one that brought that to the attention. My only question is, and I'm just, again, I'm a hog farmer. I'm just rolling up the sleeves, telling you like it is. I currently don't have enough wood on the property to make it through next year. So your one stipulation of no additional wood, that basically is telling me you're done. I'm done. I'm out. I'm toast until I find another property. Because if I can't bring in wood, then I can't split it. I can't dry it, and then I can't get rid of that wood. So that's basically a I don't know what to call that. So I don't know how
I'll
to.
amend my motion to strike no delivery of new wood. But the goal here is to focus on
Yes, ma'am.
to not have an operational focus
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I understand completely.
and restricted with those times.
Yes, ma'am. And you can make it earlier than that. We usually go from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and we're done at 4 every day.
You can modify your motion to include that.
Okay. Do I do a motion to modify then? Or?
Can she just add that stipulation in without doing a new motion? That's what, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so to strike the no delivery of new wood.
Thank you.
Step.
Yes, Commissioner Richards, I just feel it's contradictory.
Mhm.
You're saying you want to incentive not continuing activity here, but allowing delivery incentivizes continuing activity. You were originally going to have a motion that said 8 months. You said it's going to take 12 months to clear what he has.
I know.
And now you're asking for more.
I know.
We're just going to, it almost seems circular. We'll be right back because then it's going to be hard to offload new delivery that comes in after this point. So this is your motion to make, but it just doesn't seem to be getting to the resolve that seems to be your intent.
Mm-hmm. Point of clarification. Earlier you did mention that the wood you had would take 12 months to clear.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's not necessarily true.
So the wood that I currently have now was split within the last month or two. I cannot get rid of that wood. I'm going to have a lot of mad people because they'll try to burn it and it will not burn at all because it's green wood. It's filled with water. So I can the wood that I have now I can easily get rid of within 12 months. But that's not going to satisfy
The demand.
everybody that I usually take care of and have taken care of in the community for the last 6 years. We're trying to continue to accept new wood for the next few months, process it so that it sits there all summer long, and then we're ready by August, September. But by the end of February or March of next year, I hope to have a new property that is an LI or HI where I can move everything over there, and then I don't have any more problems.
So I'm only comfortable with my amended motion before, in the sense that we can fully close out operations within a year.
Yes, Commissioner, because the more inventory he brings, the more difficult it is to close operations and to be incentivized to do so. I don't understand.
But even in that, wouldn't the burden still be on him to remove any inventory that's left?
Mm-hmm.
That would be on him to move to the next location.
It's still a closeout.
Yes, ma'am. No problem.
It just reminds me of your prior case where you didn't want something to keep coming back because there's an open door. And I just feel like from listening to the applicant, it seems as if this just opens a door to ask for more time. And so to me, it just depends on what are you trying to articulate is your intent? Is the intent to allow this business, or if it's not a business, this operation to continue to function until it finds another place? Or is it your intent to make a, to make a statement that this is not a permissible activity that continues on the site?
And the only other consideration I'd had in this was putting an end date on when deliveries could be brought in, but I just feel like to be cleaner, to track, to finish, to close out, that if it's there, it's still expected to be cleared out within 12 months, whatever is on that property, with a new location, that's there, and that we're removing some of the financial barriers from achieving the new location.
I hear you.
So I think this still is in the spirit of accomplishing it. It does feel, there are elements that feel slightly contradictory in that sense of how does it keep operating if you're trying to move the operations. But in this case, there is an expectation of the community. And for that transition to not be overburdensome where you're trying to solve other things, but rather that there can be, because like I said, the focus should be on finding a new location, that there can begin that process of transition. I think this balance does accomplish that. And if not, we will see it and at the 1 year, and that would be the conversation.
I'm inclined to support you, Commissioner, despite additional questions that I have. And I know I appreciate the spirit of the activity that you have there and you coming before us today and you doing your best to moderate the impact of this on the surrounding area. Okay, so you have a motion. Can you just, I'm sorry, can you clarify your stipulations on your motion, please?
Sure. Okay, 6-foot fence around the perimeter with the goal of obscuring the site of the wood, that the height of the stored firewood would not exceed the height of the fence, no burning of the firewood, that chopping, delivery, any type of activity of that sort would be restricted from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And for 12 months. Okay. This would expire after 12 months.
And just to clarify, please, the Commissioner Sheffield, are you still a second for that motion?
Commissioner Richardson, you did not include the no landscape and then irrigation.
Yes, and no landscape required, thank you, and no irrigation.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments or questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll call the question. The motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Burrell in opposition. I believe this concludes our zoning hearings for the day. Is that correct, John?
Correct.
Wonderful. Commissioners, we are adjourned before lunch today. Hope that everyone has a great day after Valentine's Day and has a good rest of the week.